Good afternoon to Inspire Us Radio listeners. You're tuned in to Inspire Us Radio and to an Inspire exclusive that we have with Nadia-Toni Jacobs. She is a counselor at Balthorn Primary, and she is an expert in that field of holistic healing for more than 2 decades.
Yeah,
Welcome to our show, Nadia.
thank you, Ilham. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the topic this week is spiritual and purpose issues, and that is your specialty. So
Yeah.
the definition of spiritual and purpose is for those new to the concept. How do you define the difference between a conventional approach and a holistic approach when someone is feeling stuck or lacks direction in life?
So I think firstly we need to understand um, what lies behind the emotions of feeling stuck, um, and what the underlying factors are of it.
Mm.
Because feeling stuck is more the end result than the starting. And the difference between the two is that through a conventional approach, you're feeling pressure, the physical aspects of sweaty hands, body paining, fatigue. So we go to the doctor. We maybe a doctor will ask what you're going through, and it could be a possible trauma that the person is going through. Um, and what the doctor, not all of them, but what the doctors do is they're going to give you, they're going to medicate, okay, based on the perception of what the person is telling them. From a holistic point of view, we need to look at what the underlying factors are, and then allowing that person into a safe space where the person can actually um, say to you, this is what I'm going through or went through, or is presently going through. And that holistic, from a holistic approach, we can then start working together from where we are, maybe moving backward and working towards where all of that had started off, and then of course putting into process of what the client needs, um, based on the holistic approach. So in other words, um, if this so we need to remember as well, um, that many counselors has adapted to using the holistic approach, um, more so because of as society needs. So we need to also remember that we are not doctors. And so trauma, as we know, can affect one's mental capacity. And if there is a mental disorder, a counselor cannot determine that. Um, and, there are counselors like me that know about extensive medications, um, and trauma and how to minister to those trauma. But we are still not doctors at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
together with your doctor or psychologist, psychiatrist, your doctor needs to refer. That's the conventional part of it. Doctor needs to refer. His first referral would be ideally to a psychology or psychiatry. The counseling aspect of it, where the we working holistically comes in, is that you're able to check in with the person's core belief structure, what their patterns are, their mental patterns are, and abilities, where they are on a social level, So all of those things goes into play when it comes to holistic healing. And also not forgetting, Ilham, that generally in our society, we are taught to suppress emotions. Um, and so holistic healing plays a big factor on that because we need to be taught how to let go, how to bring in newness and release the bad stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so I come to you and I feel stuck like in my life. So what is the first thing that you do um because at the end of the day we all want to feel like we're progressing and we all want to feel like we're getting somewhere in life. So like if I'm feeling stuck and
Mm.
I need your advice, what is some of the like the core things that you would first like sit down with me? Like would you explain to somebody what they are going to get if they come and see you?
Okay. So I personally work on cathartic mindfulness. Okay. So cathartic mindfulness includes reflection, awareness of the mind, body, and soul. Mindfulness itself is based on those three things where you are going to bring them all together for yourself and make it a practice. Okay. So that is where we basically start. If should a doctor refer or should a school refer the counselor to a child.
Mm.
So in my framework, I have a process. It's a three-way process. The first your first interview with the person is to get the person's history to find out what this person is made up of, um, and what they are going through. So in that part of it, we go as far back as 2 or 3 generations. Okay. So now it gives me an idea of where the person is mentally, where the person is with belief, therefore belief structure. Um, oh, sorry. So sorry, Ilham. Uh, just so sorry.
That's fine.
So yeah, um, and to find out also whether the person, what is the difference that they're struggling with? Um, if it is purpose, what are they lacking? So in that first couple of minutes, you have to generate a moment of safety, a moment of trust, and it doesn't all happen in 5 minutes. Okay. So now
You
once
mentioned
you know
earlier,
we,
Nadia, that you almost go 3 generations back. Why is that so important?
yeah, because if there is addiction,
Ah.
okay,
Mhm.
if you or your parents have gone through addiction, then we need to look at side effects like fetal alcohol syndrome. What type of effects does that have on your health, and mental and physical and emotional health,
Mm.
the type of home you grew up in. Was it a dysfunctional home because of the drugs or the alcohol or gangsterism? Or was it a home where your parent is a millionaire, but you lack love, you lack quality time with parents, and so
Oh.
on? So it is, and also when we go further back, we discover oftentimes about generational abuse. Okay, where you sit now with the cycle and you have to teach that person how to break through that cycle. So history is very important. It plays a big role with regards to healing. And of course, we also need to be careful about labeling as well. You know, um, social media. We as people, we generate these words of, oh no, I've got bipolar, so blame it on that. I've got a victim mentality, so blame it on that because nobody taught me any better. So in that first three interviews that I spend with the client, I need to find out and I need to adjust my um, way of teaching in accordance to that person's needs, right? But the most important thing that I start off with is reflection.
Reflection.
That it has to be because if you do not reflect, you can't understand what's happening to you. If you sit with an average, just a little book, um, and you explain, this is what happened to me today. Now we start going into utilizing your critical thinking, but that comes later on. That I teach them later on. So the that's what I normally do with my first session with them. The second session is based on psychotherapy. So psychotherapy um, is basic talk therapy. Here you understand what the purpose is of the person. What is their purpose? What levels are they at um, in a mental capacity and emotional capacity? Do they remove themselves from the emotions? Um, and how or why are they doing that? In other words, masks. So, especially women can go through the entire life wearing a mask and being abused at home, but people would never know it, you know? So, it's also about truth, the person's truth. I would teach them journaling. Also, in talk therapy, I don't just ask, how does that make you feel? You know, what are you feeling now? How does that make you feel? That's for doctors to discover. My work is about teaching the person to open themselves up to learn more mind, body, and soul, and to go back into what you have learned, to unlearn that. Now we need to replace. So
Mm.
now we need to start relearning, you know. So that is basically where I thought of Ilham.
Mm. Nadia, what are some like the common blockages or like um yeah, like it's like kind of like a mental block where you can't get past a certain thing, and that is why you do the history and the generational investigation so that you can kind of
Mm,
unblock whatever's happening. But is there like in your like vast experience, like is there like common blockages? Like, can you identify, like, okay, look, yeah, I think I am stuck? Because sometimes we all go through
yeah,
stress, so we go through, we're very tired, or, but
yeah,
a blockage is very different to that. Like, you feel like really stuck mentally. So, like,
yeah,
over the years, is there like signs that you can tell people,
yes,
okay, look, yeah, maybe you need to go for some help?
yeah. There
Mm,
is definitely signs. Like I was saying earlier, we starting with we am starting with a client is the end result. So they would experience like But you would note in your time with them, they would use words like, I feel hopeless, I feel helpless,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worthy, um, I just feel like I want to die, I'm not enough. Um, and it becomes just like we can create positivity, we can equally create negativity. So now
Mm-hmm.
imagine you telling yourself on a daily level, why am I working for this family? They don't appreciate me. Eventually you start believing that you are no good. Then your purpose in life becomes affected. Because if I'm no good, why do I have to keep the faith? Why do I have to uh, keep hope alive? I'm, I'm not interested because nobody is interested in me. And that right there is the door that opens to drugs, alcohol, any
Mm.
type of addiction, and even self mutilation. So with a child, it's a little bit different. Children will come and or they'll go completely silent in the class. So from one extreme to the other. They generally are a talkative person. Now all they're doing is crying in class. They're overly sensitive. So by the time they come to you, they are completely overwhelmed. Um, I don't know what's happening to me. So you need to, as the counselor, you need to ask the right questions to get the right answers. And you also need to make sure that you are not pushing um, anything that triggers that's going to bring up any trauma. So yes, Ilham, there is, and of course, also saying that symptoms vary from person to
Mm.
person,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
that we can't say that one person is equally going to feel the same like the other person.
So what I'm kind of understanding is that you kind of guide them into self-realization because it's also a case of if somebody tells you what to do, then you sometimes you don't do it. But if you realize within yourself, and that's a more powerful state of mind. And I think the mind, what we're talking about now, the mind is such a powerful thing because you're saying like just telling yourself such a small thing every day can open a door to like all these evil things
Yeah.
that could come in and that could destroy your life. So,
Yes.
is there some way or some techniques that you can share with us? Like, say you're starting to slip into the negative mindset, how do you like snap out of it? Are there ways that you can like reset yourself? And also how do you help people realize or build core values? Because you were saying earlier that you can like once you've learned something, you can unlearn it and then relearn something. So like say your
Yeah.
foundation is a negative one, like you constantly go back to like um bad self-talk and like talking down to yourself and like maybe not believing in yourself. How do you um how do you build that strong foundation because it's very difficult for somebody who doesn't know what the positive mindset is or doesn't know how to inner self talk, how to talk kindly to themselves, how to believe in themselves because you think it's easy if you know how to do it, but like if you come from not only talking to yourself bad for people always putting you down on the outside, it's like a double whammy. So like how do we work on that? How
Mm.
do we work on our core values? And like what techniques can you give somebody like once they start this process to like snap out of it, like once they realize, okay, look, yeah, I'm going back, I'm like backsliding. I need to like recenter myself.
Okay. So part of me teaching emotional health
Emotional health, yeah.
or emotional wellness,
Mm.
I call it emotional health. So part of what I teach is a regulation of emotions, okay, and self-awareness.
Mm.
So grounding ourselves is absolutely important. Okay. And it's little things, Ilham. I know I say this a lot to you, the little things, but that is just the building blocks of who you can become and whatever purpose you choose in life. So self-awareness is about, again, the connection of the mind, body, and soul. If you are busy going through um, a meltdown, okay, just stop for a moment, go outside, sit down, and breathe. Just breathe.
Mm.
If it's a tree you need to sit under that you can connect with, and that sounds to some people, they will laugh at that. But you know what? Just listening um, to the wind blowing through the trees and bringing your focus back to yourself. If you're unable to focus because of all this brain rot happening, then you need to bring yourself back and rebalance and refocus. The way within which we do this is you can make something a practice, and that's where mindfulness is so beautiful, and the relearning that becomes beautiful too. Because you start with something as simple as if you're getting up in the morning and making yourself a cup of coffee, sit down, go through your breathing steps, and taste your coffee. And while you're sitting there, just focus on what am I hearing, what am I seeing, what am I feeling,
Mm.
what is my taste like. So your senses, bringing your senses together. Okay. Then we need to go on further, decide what am I going to do today mentally. If you need to write it down, you write it down. Okay. What if I have the urge to go to the bathroom and cut myself at school? What am I going to put in place? So, in other words, you need to teach yourself coping mechanisms. Okay. And this is also a big part of mindfulness. And again, everybody is different. What works for one is not necessarily going to work uh, for the other one. And with regards to values and the alignment of values, values, morals, and principles are the things that we are taught from the time we are born. We are taught those things. Um, but yes, society plays a big part because we learn about these certain things with every with our in our immediate environment as well. That makes
Mhm.
up your core belief system. Um, I'm just looking here and I'm thinking to myself, with it is so critical um, to have long-term goals within a value-based mindset. Um, if you feel that, and especially when it comes to addiction, if you feel that your values are out by the window, then that is where you need to start. You need to start balancing yourself, keeping yourself grounded, and with purposeful things. So, you know, again, I go back to the journaling, the reflection, critical thinking, how to develop uh, your five senses, how to be in the moment of what you are feeling, and how to acknowledge it and not judge it. Um, if you did a bad thing, don't judge yourself, you know. Um, tell yourself, you know what, I had a bad day, and now I need to move on. It's almost like, when somebody sends you a bad um message, bad WhatsApp message. What we generally do is we read this message over and over and over. And what does it do? It makes us angrier and angrier instead of just deleting the message, you know? So there is a lot of things, Ilham, when it comes to mindfulness and holistic teaching.
Mm.
Um, you can develop strengths that I promise you is so amazing. And I think if I can just add to that,
Mm.
the biggest purpose for me as a human being was to be able to have a sense of peace and forgiveness. That is so big. Peace and forgiveness and letting go. Because remember, we have many, many of our people are carrying such heavy burdens, and they're going to come home, they're going to do what they need to do, they're going to sleep with it, they get up with it, they go back to work with it, and that is their way of life.
Mm.
And many people don't know how to get um, or how to teach themselves emotional freedom. And that must be the sole purpose. Once you hit emotional freedom, you can do anything, you know. I hope I answered that question.
That is so important. I never thought of that emotional freedom because we always think freedom in terms
Yeah,
of like access to going somewhere or like because our movements were restricted, but it's also the emotional freedom that we maybe need to work on
yeah,
because especially like as a country we've gone through so much trauma, especially the people of color. And so we're living
yeah,
in a constant, we're kind of still living in the past, especially like the older generation. They grew up in that era where they were always watched and they were always being monitored. And so it is a very dark past. And I think a lot of them haven't found that what you coined now, like
yeah,
what you're speaking about is emotional freedom. They haven't found that.
yeah.
And so they're always living
And
in the past.
yeah, and also Ilham, like I just noticed also something. I do a lot of extensive studying, and I read up a lot on short stories. And the one thing that a lot of moms battle with is the sense of non-fulfillment. You know,
Mm.
they go into a place where um, the spirituality is not fulfilling them anymore. You know, the lack of motivation, the fear of making choices based on loss of power. And that is so big. When you feel loss of power, it's like you're not in control. So when we teach mindfulness, we need to get them to a point to believe that you are in control. You're in control of what you choose to do, which values to keep, which values you let go of. You know,
Mm.
um, seeking blame, that's another one. Seeking blame because you don't want to take responsibility for your actions. Um, so now I'm blaming it on, no, it's because my husband does this, so I do that. Or I don't have money because of this and that. Um, so here we need to go into critical thinking. This is the part I love,
Mm.
because I ask open-ended questions and questions that can open the mind so that I can reiterate it back to them and so that they can hear what they just said to me, you know. Um, because many times, especially our women of color, they face things, and this is literally most women. They've either been in a situation where they've been abused, or they've gone through beatings every day, and then they go into that negative space and they just go further down and down. And how they can get out of this dilemma is to ask yourself, what am I going to do to change it? And that's where they need to be. What am I going to do to change it? I don't need to go through this. Take all that energy and go to your core belief system and try to understand, why am I holding on to anger? Why am I holding on to pain? Why am I thinking that my church will no longer accept me? You know? So it's absolutely, and also remember, and this is something Paula actually taught me, your mind is the biggest liar. Your
Hmm.
mind is the biggest liar, and it is so true. Because if you tell yourself something every day, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you're going to start believing it. So just imagine the difference we can make if we tell a child every day, you are worth my time.
Hmm.
If I'm going to tell the child, like I tell my children at school when they had these meltdowns, I say to them, you can give up on yourself, but I'm not giving up on you. And if you tell them that enough, they will start believing in people again, you
Hmm.
know? And that goes for anybody.
Mm. Nori, we're coming to the last 2 minutes of the show, but I just want to also say what you said is so true about self-reflection. We really do need to look at ourselves first and our behavior, because our behavior,
Yeah,
besides what other people do, kind of creates our environment. Because that's also kind of what you're saying. You
yeah,
create your environment. And so we really need to take a look at ourselves, and we have to also take responsibility for what we're going to accept and not accept in our surroundings,
yeah,
and that is going to
yeah.
determine like whether you're successful or not. And you have to be strong with yourself also, because sometimes we fall back into the habits, and that's, I think, what you're talking about, is
Mm,
to break a habit, like how you need to
yeah,
learn to break a habit, and you need to learn to move on, and to be emotionally free from whatever you're letting go of. Letting go is very, very important.
yeah.
But
And
thank you
it's
so much
difficult.
for it. Can be difficult, Nadia. This is a topic that we can talk about for hours, but Zoom don't give
I
us that
know.
long. But thank you so much for your time. We definitely gonna
You're
have more sessions
welcome.
about this, because I feel like um
Yeah,
just so that people can know that it is okay to go see somebody, to go speak to. It is okay to work on yourself.
yeah,
It is okay to better yourself. You, if you need help, there is nothing wrong with getting help. Nadia is there. She's one of many people out there that can help you with your life, that can turn your life around, that can turn your life around from the inside out. Because also just throwing money or
yeah.
giving food parcels or helping somebody isn't enough. Like, you need to change somebody
It's not.
inside. It's from the inside out.
Yes.
So
It starts with you.
it starts within, and I think that is the core message. Like, start within and start today.